And now back to your regular programming.
If you speak better to yourself.
You showed up for probably the dumbest conversation we've ever had on this show.
Let's have that smile again.
Tell me how that happens. Physically should not happen.
Relax.
If you say
Give me as well.
3 times a day, God will line it up.
He's just an absolute hack, and he gets his ass kicked by the teammates every week. It's just terrible.
Welcome back to Hack City. Joe DeLeone, Sean Anderson, 2 former college football players from the University of Rhode Island. We're here to preview the next round of the FCS football playoffs. We've reached the quarterfinals. 4 teams will remain after this weekend. More importantly, you get more of a national audience. More people are going to be tapping into these games. Sean, if people wanted to bet on said games this weekend for the FCS football playoff quarterfinal round, where can they do it?
They can go to Bet Online. They can bet that I will not be trying to distinguish between quarterfinal and semifinal this year after the rash of S that I got last year for a simple error. Regardless, I'll leave that to Joe DeLeone. I'll also leave the NFL bets to Joe DeLeone as he has the hot hand all season. He's doing it at Bet Online. That's where you should be doing your sports wagering also.
Don't say hot hand, by the way. After what happened, I don't want to.
You got the hot hand, man. What, I hit a $23 wager on Monday night betting against the Cowboys. That was nice, but it wasn't substantial. I was trying being genuine.
Can't get through a betting reference without making me upset.
I know it's a little a little sore. Regardless, Bet Online. Earliest odds, in-game live betting. Bet Online provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. They got every sport that you need. I'm not going to run through them again. Maybe I will. Football, NBA, college basketball, NHL, UFC. We still got some college football to bet on. Also, head to Bet Online today, and don't forget to use the promo code BLEAV for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, the game starts here.
All right. First game that we've got here for the quarterfinal round. By the way, if you needed help figuring out which round we're at, there's 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
Quarter.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. And then when they win semi, meaning 2, we're going to have 2 games and then final.
You see, I've got more of a mechanical intelligence where I know if I asked you to change your tire, you wouldn't know, exactly where to find the jack. But I'm glad you can differentiate between quarter and semi.
That's one way to deflect. Number 8, Idaho is traveling to take on number 1, Montana State. First time they squared off, it was 38-7. It was very lopsided in favor of the Bobcats. Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN. Now, Idaho has been on a bit of a heater since Jack Lane returned to the lineup. They've been 5-0 since. Their offense, their defense has been playing at a high level, led by Is it Jackson or Jackson?
Jackson is how it is. Okay, how it is typed out. That's how it was typed on NCAA.com.
Got it. Jackson Eck, who's got 121 total tackles, as well as Keyshawn James Newby, who has 14 tackles for loss and 10 sacks this season. Very well-rounded Idaho squad dealing with one of the most explosive teams, if not the most explosive team in FCS football, with a 3-headed monster that is Scottree Humphrey, Adam Jones, and Tommy Malott. Where do you lean in terms of the direction of this game?
I'm leaning Montana State. It's a simple lean, but if I'm going to counter that, I will note that Jack Wagner was a starting quarterback when they first played each other this season. It wasn't Lane. Lane, I like his deep ball a lot. He's solid, and I think he unlocks the offense down the field. Idaho's got a lot of promise, and I know the Montana State Slurp Fest is coming in a moment. But I really like what they do with their passing game.
Sorry, that was really graphic. I can't move past that.
Yeah, it's fine.
A little graphic.
Jordan Dwyer is their most consistent offensive player, 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns, does about everything you need him to do at wide receiver. And if I'm a coach on Montana State on the defensive side, I'm pointing out that Mark Hamper is going to get a screen pass at some point in this game. That's where his touchdowns come from. They love that screen pass to him. Idaho, I said it on the recap this week. They freak me out. I don't know exactly what they are. They got 3 running backs, as you noted in here, all over 450 yards, all under 550 yards.
I don't know the health situation with all 3 of these guys. Cummings and Buchanan had carries in the last game, but Nate Thomas did not.
I noticed that as well. I
always love how easy it is to figure out who's playing and who's not.
2 out of the 3 of them at any time can run the ball very well. Unfortunately, they can't run it as well as Montana State. Good God, 308 rush yards per game. That's number 2 nationally, people. And what does number 2 nationally with your run yards per game get you? The number 1 scoring offense in the nation with 41.3, and it's a sizable gap between 1 and 2. They're just an absolute beast behemoth, this Montana State team. They don't give up sacks, only 10 allowed all year, 5th best in the nation. What does that tell you about the offensive line? They keep the quarterback up. They can get push up front. It's just a dominant offense. The defense is good too, but they're so good on offense. I wouldn't need them to be great on defense just because I know they can beat any team in a shootout. But they're obviously, if they move past Idaho, are going to have to face some heavy hitters that have been there before. And if Montana State is taking themselves seriously, a huge win versus Idaho could get them right on track.
I think for the biggest reason, you mentioned the sacks allowed for Montana State this year. Their offensive line has been phenomenal. They're the biggest reason why they have 308 rush yards per game, which is 2nd best in the country this year, and why they're averaging 41 points per game. Their O-line does a great job of creating rushing lanes, but also giving Malott time, who has been a refined passer this year at 70% completion percentage. He has him and Cam Miller, and we're going to talk about Cam Miller in a second. Both of them have taken this step forward in their completion percentage because it feels like they both have really good time in the pocket. They've got a lot of time to think and process. Idaho's success this year, this isn't like last year where it was the Giovanni McCoy show, and you could think that if there was a way for them to create a close matchup, that they could create a shootout. I don't think that this Idaho team is that same way, albeit Jack DeLeone has created a little bit more offensive consistency. I don't believe that this game will be as lopsided as the first outing, but I think that ultimately Montana State's offensive line is, like we saw the first time, is going to do enough to protect Malott and create those rushing lanes for Adams and Humphrey to have another big game.
If this Idaho team was playing last year's Montana State team, I would be much less confident, but Malott took a huge step up, and so did the offensive design. They're just so solid. 2nd best in the nation on 3rd down conversion percentage, over 500. I don't know how many teams have come and passed me by that are converting over 50% of their 3rd downs. I'd say it's way less than way more. It is so rare to see that, how strong they can be. And the fact that the last couple of weeks, they've let Malott air it out more. It's not just Tommy Malott running it on a read option, and we're going to try to churn you out 6 yards at a time. No, he's passing the rock. He has the same amount of touchdowns through the air as Cam Miller. He's obviously still got the juice on the ground with 11 tuds on the year. And also, if you think these are just kind of weird, low passing amount numbers, I think he has like 45 less attempts passing than Miller does on the season. So they've taken tremendous strides, and there's a reason why they're the number 1 seed in the nation. And Idaho, I know you got a bunch of magic. I know you got a bunch of freak town magic that you're ready to bring.
What? Okay, sorry, finish.
But Montana State is just a different animal.
They don't have the Idaho magic. It all stems from what is that liminal space that is the Kibbe Dome. On the road, I'm not buying that. They can't suck you into the vacuum, into the other dimension of playing in the Kibbe Dome. The magic doesn't travel. It doesn't.
I know, but I know that they like to celebrate on planes after away games with great videos, the head coach and the team. They got a good vibe to them, but I just can't lean Idaho. So, yeah, Rack and Chester, I'm sure. No, you can't even light us up. You can't light us up. The chat's going to be quiet this week because we're all just going to be waiting in anticipation for the shoe to drop.
They've got a great long snapper. I forget his name. Xander. Xander, it's something. I forget his last name.
Yeah.
What? Okay.
It's a good long snapper.
We got another rematch. Number 6 Incarnate Word is traveling again this year to South Dakota State. This is a noon kick on Saturday on ESPN. First time they played, it was 45-24. I'm going to keep it pretty simple here. I think that this game is going to play out very similarly. Not much has changed since these two teams have played. I'm sorry, Incarnate Word fans. We've been hyping you up a ton this year as the season closed out, but I don't see a world where you're going to be able to play this one close and pull out the upset. I love Zach Calzada, who has been a breath of fresh air at quarterback for them and has been the next great super productive quarterback in that offense. I love the name Mr. Williams, who's got 5 that's the best name in football.
Yeah.
Mr. Williams. I need to know if that's a nickname. Did his parents name him Mr.?
Nicknames are typically put in quotations, even on football bios.
Not always. Not always. There's been some dudes that just have straight up the nicknames the first name, and you're kind of just sitting there wondering, like, what's the real name?
I'm pretty sure Kool-Aid McKinstry still had the quotes on his Alabama profile page.
We're gonna test that.
Okay, you look that up.
All right, wait. Let me finish what I was saying though. It's hard for me to feel like that after we saw the talent disparity the first time, that again, not much has changed since the last matchup, that suddenly Incarnate Word is going to travel on the road in brutal weather changes of being from Texas, stepping into having to play in South Dakota weather. Oh, it gets kind of cold in Texas. What are you talking about? Not the same. You're going to find out. South Dakota State, though, has been fantastic this year on both sides of the football. 6th best scoring offense, and their defense, albeit doesn't have that like premier D lineman that's been super productive like they usually do. They're still led by Adam Bach, who is a menace at linebacker with 83 tackles and 8 tackles for loss.
Yeah, Incarnate Word, you got really two to three massive points of advantage against South Dakota State, and South Dakota State holds the rest of the cards in their hand. And for Incarnate Word, that being their turnover margin is great. They're plus 12 on the year. Calzada's done a great job of protecting the ball. You have the quarterback advantage. I think Calzada's had a better year than Gronowski, and I think a lot of South Dakota State fans would have to agree with me, given he's 6th in total yardage on the year and 2nd in touchdowns, just behind Miles Hastings. He has 34 on the year. And I think they have the wide receiver advantage. Jalen Waltall and Roy Alexander have both put up incredible years, both over 1,000 yards. Waltall tied for 2nd in touchdowns with 14, and Alexander has 12. Like, these are just the things that they've done great all year. But South Dakota State still is fundamentally the better team top to bottom. Their scoring defense is insane. That's also insane.
His name was Kool-Aid on the roster.
I know. Okay, you know what? I've been proven wrong at this point.
Okay.
The South Dakota State defense, again, very quietly all year, the number 1 scoring defense, 12.85 points a game. That's nuts. To get this far and not eclipse 13, craziness. And if you think that maybe we're Incarnate Word, they're going to be playing for our pass, and we're just going to try to run the rock, calm down, because they've got the number 5 rush defense, only still allowing under 100 yards a game at 89.3. It's just a different beast in South Dakota State. Incarnate Word has had a spectacular season. The only way they catch them off guard is if they get 2 quick touchdowns on sequential drives in the first quarter, and then maybe we're in a different type of ball game.
The only fear that we've brought up with South Dakota State coming into this playoff run, potentially, and it showed up against North Dakota State, it showed up against Oklahoma State, the lack of explosive talent at receiver that they've had over the past couple of years. The Yankee twins are gone, and Wieldy is, I swear I always mispronounce
Wieldy, you got it.
Wieldy's right. Okay. Griffin Wieldy has been strong this year for them with 10 receptions, receiving touchdowns. But outside of that, I just don't know who you turn to. There is no Tucker Kraft. There is no guy that you can, on 3rd and 7, is going to get the football and is going to come down with it. If they're not finding success rushing the football, it feels like there is a little bit more strain in the offense. But this does not feel like it's going to be the game where they're going to get knocked off. I don't think Incarnate Word, as we saw the first time's defense, is built to slow down a rushing attack like this. If they could somehow turn this into a track meet and try to turn this into a shootout, that's how Incarnate Word could pull it off, but I still have to go with South Dakota State, of course.
Yeah, Incarnate Word's not going to win the fist fight. You're not going to be able to out-bully South Dakota State. It's very, very difficult to do, and one team has done it this year, and that's North Dakota State, and we all know that the stakes are also a little bit different in that one. So if you really want to try to open it up, give yourself a shot, maybe 3 straight deep shots on the first drive. Go ahead. If you go 3 and out, you go 3 and out, but at least you're taking a chance at trying to crack the game open and do what you do best, which is air that thing out. That's Incarnate Word's best shot. Other than that, South Dakota State has the clear advantage in this one.
We're moving on over to the other South Dakota team. Walmart South Dakota State is hosting number 5 UC Davis. The stadium they play in feels like a Walmart. UC Davis, damn, we're just taking shots. I'm sorry, guys.
You know what? No, they should have packed that stadium out more in their last game. They have a good team.
Yeah.
It wasn't filled up. I saw the pictures. I saw some people taking victory laps that may support an in-state rival that were clowning the attendance at the South Dakota game.
Oh, so the South Dakota State fans were...
Yeah, they were kind of, rubbing it in.
All right, I got to be straight. I'm jumping right into my take here. I think that UC Davis is going to win this game against South Dakota. I think that this is obviously the most evenly matched matchup this weekend. And I think that UC Davis's offense, I think that this is like where we really see them have their moment this year, where everyone's talking on the FCS landscape of like, oh, wow, these dudes came to play. Lan Larison and Miles Hastings, they stepped up to the moment. They stepped up to the occasion. We know that South Dakota's offense is equally as potent. We know that their defense is very stout, only allowing 16 points per game, being the third best. Mike's Grace and Nick Gase have been super disruptive along that defensive line, combining for 17 and a half sacks. But I can't turn away from one, Hastings, who has been a top 3 quarterback, maybe even the best quarterback behind Cam Miller in FCS football this year, and Miles Hastings, who has ridiculous stats on the season. I keep forgetting sometimes how freaking insane his stats were. Him finishing with 17 rushing touchdowns, 1,400 rushing yards, and 842 receiving yards, being UC Davis's leading receiver. They are so freaking tough to stop. And I know that South Dakota has battled through and finished games and had really great performances. The way that they finished against North Dakota State is extremely notable and in my mind. But I feel like UC Davis, this is where they get over the hump and they get to the next round.
I'm so in on the UC Davis offensive show. I've been in since week 1 this year. Hastings has been what I think he was my number 1 FCS quarterback. He proved it to me. Lan Larison, I've sung his praises all year. I actually don't think it's going to be the UC Davis offense that is the biggest factor in this game. I think it's going to be the UC Davis front 7 having to hold their own against South Dakota and their very good offensive line, who has only allowed 11 sacks on the year, which is very, very good. And they're going to also have to battle against Charles Pierre Jr. and Travis Thies, who have just eviscerated teams this year. I can't even add up their combined numbers in my head. You know why? Because it's too many numbers. It's a 4-digit number and a high 3-digit number. I can't do that quick math. Charles Pierre eclipsing 1,100 yards rushing. Thies eclipsing 975 yards rushing. 31 combined rush touchdowns. Both of them are averaging over 6 yards a carry. It just seems impossible to truly slow these two down. And I know UC Davis can keep up, but the South Dakota defense is super solid. And I know that there's going to be at least a couple stalls. It's just the nature of the beast. I don't know if a running game as potent as South Dakota's can really get stalled out. UC Davis really needs to show up in the front 7.
I think the slight separation gap for me in this is that ability for UC Davis to put together a quick drive through the air. I think that there's just a slight separation gap between Bauman's been great, but I think that Miles Hastings and Aiden Bauman, I would rather have Miles Hastings in that 2-minute situation. That's how I always come down to these games where evenly matched teams, if one team has the ball last, who is going to finish out? I think that gives me the edge there with UC Davis, and they don't get enough love. Also, by the way, they're moving up to the Mountain West, which is very interesting. We're not going to really react to that, but I found that that news dropped today. So interesting, and congrats to UC Davis. But this is going to be a big game for them, and I think that they can pull out this upset on the road.
Here's a little tidbit that I found today, just scrolling through some numbers nationally. If this game does get close, UC Davis may have an advantage on special teams, as their kicker, Hunter Ridley, has the best field goal percentage out of any kicker left in the playoffs. He has made 16 of 18 field goals of the year.
That's the best?
The best of the current teams in the playoffs. He's the best kicker, field goal percentage-wise. So I guess if it's coming down to the nitty gritty, so be it. I wouldn't mind letting him try to knock one through to break a tie.
All right, last game here. Number 7 Mercer travels to the Fargo Dome to play North Dakota State, 3:30 Eastern time on ABC. I'm glad that all these games are early and that there is no 10 p.m. game that's being played on Saturday, which is that would be absurd. Because I mean, obviously, I would stay up and watch it, but it's like, come on.
Well, I'm happy because I wouldn't want to do. That would be an all-nighter for me, likely with my impending.
Just drink through it. That's what you do with your flight coming up. Seriously, I mean, I did that once. You just drink through it, and then you get on the plane. The only problem is when I did it, my flight got canceled. That was at 6 a.m. So then the next flight that I had to get on was 6 p.m. So I was still drunk, no sleep, coming out of a club, trying to get onto a plane, and that was a mistake.
I drank through it plenty in Europe and sat on their tin cans. Thanks, Ryanair. One of the worst flights I've ever had. Hangover didn't help, and then I drank through it in Miami after spring break. I don't like drinking through it. I kind of like being a little spry for the plane, so I can be agile. I need to know what's going on. I got to see. I got to be moving and shaking in the airport, man. I can't be stuck.
Gotta be ready if the Terrys get froggy.
yeah. We got to Drax them scrubs. That's audience of 2. Man.
Oh, anyone who watches Key and Peele. All right. Mercer has been super productive on defense. We saw them get another pick against Rhodey this past week. 23 team interceptions and 4 return for touchdowns this year, which is bonkers. Number 1 rush defense, only allowing 66 yards, and they're number 1 in team sacks with 42 on the year. However, they haven't been tested by a team like North Dakota State. This is where reality sets in, where you get to square off with a team that's got an NFL offensive lineman in Gray Zabel and a guy in Cam Miller who is likely going to win the Walter Payton. This is the come to Jesus moment, Mercer. This is when you realize, are we as good as we think that we are, or are these dudes about to kick the shit out of us? I lean North Dakota State kicking the shit out of them. No one in the SoCon gave them a legitimate test compared to this. No one in the SoCon even comes close to this.
I didn't know you were doubling down there. I am. The Mercer defense has been so fun to track this year. They've been dominant. They put up gaudy numbers. Being number 1 in those categories means something to me. It really does. It lets me know that they have what it takes to stop good offenses to a point. Unfortunately, the Mercer offense, I think, will be their detriment in this game, as Mercer was able to turn the ball over 21 times this year. That is over one time a game. That's spectacular. That's all you could ask for. Wait.
Why do they have 23 team interceptions, but they've turned the ball over 21 times? I'm confused. Let me check that. We might have written something down wrong.
I was in their turnover margin. They're at a plus 11 because they have Joe. Their 23 team picks is what they've received. They have 21 turnovers on offense. So
their offense is only
so they have a plus 11 turnover margin, even though they have had such tremendous success, getting.
So you're saying that they're turning the ball over almost at the same rate that their
offense is really not helping them out there. They should be at, I don't know, a plus 30, plus 35 turnover margin. So
that's the worst stat of the show. That is the worst stat of the show. Talk about come to Jesus. Holy shit.
Yeah, that's rough. North Dakota State, what do we know about them? Disciplined, strong, opportunistic. Kind of the exact opposite that you want if you're Mercer. Mercer would be happy to play an Incarnate word. They'd be happy to play someone that's airing it out. Maybe we could take advantage of it. But if I'm North Dakota State, I say, hey, Cam Miller, you've had a great season. We don't need you to do all that much this game. Hand the ball off, make the right plays. We're going to do a bunch of play action, and we're going to grind this team down because we know we can stop them on offense, and we know eventually they're going to break. Every FCS playoffs that we see with North Dakota State featured, it's the same story when they get deep into it. Hot team playing North Dakota State. Is this the year that they fall? What do we see happen? The most boring game of all time, where North Dakota State just sucks the life out of the other team over 4 quarters. And I like Mercer. I'm happy that the SoCon had a really good team this year. but I don't see how it's possible that they don't have their life force sucked out by North Dakota State. They're just too good.
I think the biggest part that you noted here is that best turnover margin, 19 plus 19, and only 4 turnovers on the year. The biggest part, Mercer's success and their life has been from creating turnovers. You mentioned the discipline. What separates North Dakota State in these playoff situations in their entire history is that they protect the football. And I think the biggest improvement here for me with North Dakota State this year, and why I still think that they're a live threat despite the late loss at the end of the season to win the national title, is that Cam Miller has taken that step forward of protecting the football better. He's not putting the ball in harm's way. Last year and in the past, and I famously was clipped by the North Dakota State media team by saying, I can't trust Cam Miller because he makes really poor reads and poor decisions with his throws. Different version of him. He has seen so much, so many reps, so many coverages that he is the second best completion percentage in the country. He's not turning the ball over. He's being decisive. He's the reason why they're winning. If you are facing a team that is so good at keeping the ball in their hands and you live and die by turnover luck, that's what this is. This is why I'm always super wary over teams that don't have consistent offensive production, have their own turnover issues, but are in the upper categories of interceptions and fumbles or whatever it might be. It was the same thing with BYU this year at the FBS level. Those teams that sometimes you earn those interceptions, you earn those fumbles. Some of those are a little lucky. Some of those you just kind of bank off of the fact that an opposing team makes a really dumb mistake or you're playing against bad teams. I'm not trying to call out Mercer here, but all I'm trying to say is what is real and doesn't really need much evidence is that North Dakota State protects the football. What might require digging and could get disproven is how good Mercer really is at turning over opposing teams.
Yeah, I can't get fully behind a big Mercer push here. I won't, because
this ain't the team that's going to knock them off.
Irresponsible. When we started this show 5 years ago, whatever it was, one of the first things we said, we were talking about North Dakota State and in the playoffs, and we were up and coming, and we wanted to make rivals out of other FCS broadcasters. The one thing that
we're so bad at that too.
The one thing that we kind of just gave up. The one thing we always said was,
the problem was we didn't give up is that we would take random goofy not real shots and then said people we were DMing with and being really friendly with, so it wasn't real. Oh Jesus, we've always said in the playoffs it's irresponsible to pick against North Dakota State when they have the advantage. It's still irresponsible this year. I'm not going to make that mistake. I'm definitely leaning North Dakota State. All right, really quickly, FC estimates. I went 7 of 8 last week. Sean went 4 of 8. 93 of 136 for Joe. 85 of 136 for Sean. Idaho, Montana State. Who you got?
Montana State.
Montana State as well. Oh, look, all chalk here. South Dakota State versus Incarnate Word.
South Dakota State.
Give me South Dakota State. UC Davis versus South Dakota State. Oh, it's not all chalk, but you're just copying me so that you can finish the season strong. UC Davis versus South Dakota State.
God forbid I want a decent record. UC Davis.
Yeah, learn to follow the master. UC Davis. I beat you every year in this table.
I know you have not.
You beat me once, I think.
Oh, I smoked you that year, though.
No, that was during the spring. That was during that spring season.
No,
that
it was not. You always bring up this phantom spring season of FCS estimates.
What do you mean the phantom? It happened. Are you? Is that a conspiracy theory that the FCS didn't play?
I'm just saying. I know I beat you in a regular season FC estimates as well, but it just all goes back to the one COVID year where Sean got hot.
Bubble championship, man.
Oh, no, that was not a Mickey ring.
It was a Mickey ring. UC Davis, South Dakota.
UC Davis.
Give me Uck Davis, Mercer, North Dakota State.
He shouldn't be rewarded with FCS wins when he just says things like that. And North Dakota State.
Bison! At Joe DeLeone, at Sanderson Radio, at Hack City Pod. We'll talk to you folks later. Enjoy the rest of your week.